We live in an age obsessed with mindfulness. There are apps for it, courses, quotes. Everyone tells you, just be present. But this advice often feels like a command we don't know how to follow. You sit still, and the noise in your head grows louder. You try to breathe deeply, and your chest tightens. Even in peace, there is pressure. Why? Because now is not a button you can push. It's not a place you can arrive at. It's not even a thing you can hold. The now is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. We imagine presence as something we achieve, a medal we earn for silence. But presence isn't earned, it's revealed. And the more you try to force it, the more distant it becomes. This is the paradox Alan Watts spoke of. The harder you chase stillness, the louder your mind becomes. We are conditioned to strive, to reach, to control. But presence is what's left when the striving stops. It's not about doing, it's about undoing. Undoing the tension, the stories, the false urgency. Being present means surrendering the need to be anywhere but here, and that in itself is an act of courage. Alan Watts often spoke of the tension we carry, like a constant hum beneath the surface. You don't notice it until you stop. Then suddenly it's deafening. It's the need to check your phone every few minutes, the urge to multitask even during meditation, the anxiety when you're not doing anything at all. This isn't just distraction, it's addiction, not to technology, but to motion, to being in control, to being somewhere else. Stillness reveals the hum, and we don't like what it tells us. Even small moments of silence, waiting in line, sitting in traffic, brushing your teeth, can trigger the itch. We fill them reflexively with noise, content, conversations in our heads. We scroll, hum, snack, plan, anything but sit still. Because stillness isn't neutral. It confronts us with the parts of ourselves we don't control, the emotions we didn't process, the questions we've been avoiding. This inner buzz is not just mental, it's physical too. Clenched jaws, stiff necks, shallow breath. We are constantly bracing for something that never quite arrives. And in that chronic readiness, we forget what it feels like to just be. We think our minds are restless because we're overstimulated. But the truth is deeper. Watts said, "We run away from the present moment not because it's boring, but because it's empty. And we fear that emptiness. Because in that quiet space there is nothing to define us. No identity, no purpose, no narrative. Just raw existence. It feels like standing on the edge of a cliff with no ground beneath you, and no story to hold you up. So we run. Even peace feels threatening if it invites us to disappear, because the moment we stop doing, we face a haunting question. If I am not my job, my roles, or my worries, then what am I? This fear isn't loud, it's subtle. A quiet ache that makes us reach for the next task, the next distraction, the next validation. We treat silence like a void that must be filled, rather than a space that holds us. And yet, everything in nature emerges from emptiness, the sky, the ocean, a breath. It's only the human mind that resists it. But emptiness doesn't erase us. It shows us what we are beyond words. It invites us not to vanish, but to expand. To remember that we are more than our stories. We are the space they unfold in. If this resonates with you, you might find even more insight in our video, Why You'll Never Find Yourself, where Alan Watts explores the illusion of a fixed identity and what lies beyond it. You can find the link at the top of the screen now. We fill the emptiness with who we think we are. Our careers, our opinions, our goals, our trauma, our dreams, our titles. These become our armor, a constructed self, polished for the world. But armor is heavy, and when we try to enter the present moment, it doesn't fit through the door. You can't be fully here and fully armored. Something has to be left behind. Presence requires vulnerability, and that feels like death to the ego. So we hold tightly to these identities, even when they exhaust us. We'd rather be someone than risk being no one. Even if that someone is anxious, overworked, or endlessly striving. We confuse presence with performance and self-worth with productivity. We build lives like resumes, a list of roles, achievements, and labels. But underneath all that, there's stillness waiting to be noticed. Have you ever sat alone and felt the sudden panic of not knowing who you are without a role to play? That fear is the doorway to presence. Because when you finally put down the armor, even for a moment, you don't vanish. You simply become real. Imagine the ego as a character in your mind, always narrating, planning, fixing, judging. It fears silence because silence reveals its illusion. It fears now because now requires surrender. Watts once said, "Ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention." It's not who you are. It's simply what you're focused on. But it clings to life as if it were the center of the universe. So it invents problems, creates drama, clings to timelines and tasks, all to stay alive. And so, even in moments of stillness, it whispers, "What's next?" The ego needs movement to feel real. It thrives on becoming, on what you are about to be, not what you already are. It dreads the now because it can't survive there. In the present, there's no room for comparison, no future to chase, no past to justify. So the ego resists with urgency, creating imaginary fires for you to put out. It will tell you, you can rest once you've earned it. But the present moment was never something to be earned. It was always yours. If only you could be quiet enough to hear it calling. Even the pursuit of presence can become another trap. You sit to meditate and judge how well you're doing. You analyze your breath. You criticize your wandering mind. It becomes mindfulness through gritted teeth. This is what Watts warned against, turning spirituality into performance, a more refined form of ego, a subtler way of staying out of the now. True presence is not about achievement. It's not even about self-improvement. It's about trust. Trusting that life knows how to live you, if only you stop resisting. We often mistake control for consciousness. We want presence to be something we master, like a technique. But presence is not a skill. It's a state of surrender. It can't be won through effort, only received through openness. Even the thought, "I must be present," can become another distraction. We treat awareness like homework, forgetting that trees grow without striving and rivers flow without strategy. True presence has no agenda. It arises when we allow ourselves to be messy, distracted, inconsistent, and still enough to be aware of awareness itself, not as a concept, but as a quiet returning. Presence is not what you do with the moment. It's what happens when you stop trying to shape it. Try this. Sit in a room with no noise, no music, no guidance, just stillness. What rises? Often it's not peace, but grief, loneliness, regret, fear. Stillness is a mirror, and most of us don't like what we see. But silence doesn't lie. It reveals. Watts believed that to truly awaken, we must be willing to look, to face the contents of our own minds without flinching, to sit with the unresolved, and to allow it to pass without judgment. Presence is not comfort, it is clarity. This is why we avoid silence, not because it's dull, but because it's honest. It shows us the parts of ourselves we've been keeping in the attic, the loss we never mourned, the longing we never voiced, the guilt we never faced. It's easier to stay busy than to feel, but healing doesn't happen in motion. It happens in stillness. In the quiet, we begin to realize that pain is not something to escape, but something to listen to. That emotions are not interruptions, they're invitations. And when we stop editing what arises in silence, we meet a self that is raw, but real. Not the polished one we present to the world, but the one that watches, breathes, and simply is. And that is the beginning of presence. We try to stand apart from life, to manage it, to improve it, to win. But Watts offered a different image. You are not a stranger in this universe. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are not the surfer, you are the wave. And a wave doesn't ask, "Am I doing this right?" It simply flows. Being present means becoming the wave, letting go of control, allowing yourself to rise and fall, without resistance, without grasping. We are taught to separate ourselves from life, to treat it as something out there we must navigate, fix, or conquer. But you cannot be present and be separate. To be present is to dissolve into the experience, to taste the wind, feel the breath, hear the silence without the filter of thought. It is to surrender the role of observer and merge with the observed. A wave doesn't resist the shore. It meets it. It doesn't cling to the sea. It returns, again and again. This is presence, not arrival, but rhythm. Not stability, but flow. Not being in control, but being in communion. What happens when you let go? Not of things, but of yourself. Your story, your tension, your agenda. What remains? Watts described it as a kind of graceful vanishing, not erasure, but absorption, like a drop of water rejoining the ocean. You don't lose yourself in the present moment. You return to yourself, the self that's too vast to be named. This is the irony. You spend your life trying to build a you that the present moment doesn't need. And the moment you stop trying to be someone, you realize you already are everything. The fear of disappearing is the ego's fear, not the soul's. The soul doesn't disappear in presence, it emerges. And in that emergence, you don't become less, you become whole. We're afraid that if we stop performing, we'll be forgotten. But the truth is, you are most deeply remembered when you are most deeply real. What disappears is the illusion, not you. What remains is the part of you that was never separate to begin with. In presence, there is no audience, no applause, no mask, only being, silent, alive, complete. The real reason you can't be present is not because you don't know how. It's because you're afraid to let go of the person who can't be. The person who must succeed, who must be liked, who must matter. But the present moment doesn't care who you think you are. It only asks you to be here. So breathe. Not to calm yourself, but to remember yourself. You don't need to earn this moment. You don't need to escape it. You only need to stop running and come home. Home is not a place. It's not an image of peace or perfection. Home is the space where nothing is missing, where you are enough, even when you're silent, where the mind finally rests, and the heart simply listens. This is the grace of being present. Not fixing, not fleeing, just being. And if this reflection resonated with you, take a moment now. Not to rush forward, but to stay a little longer. Let this video be an invitation, not an escape. If you'd like to keep exploring these ideas with us, subscribe to The Art of Being and discover more videos on presence, purpose, and the beauty of simply existing. Thank you for being here. Truly here.